Welcome to today's episode of Falling to Freedom, where addiction ends and faith begins, the weekly podcast that brings thoughtful, informed, and challenging discussions about addiction to the forefront of everyone's minds. We join our host now, Chad Lacombe, for today's topic.
Well, today we are joined by Doug Whiteman, the Executive Director of River's Edge Ranch in Lucerne Valley Drug and Alcohol Recovery Program. Today our topic is going to be community. Like the importance of community. And I love it. I'm glad we get to have this conversation, Doug. We've had other conversations, and sure. I've actually come out and visited the ranch, and you guys have a great thing going out there. And, you know, our ministry, Fully Restored Ministries, very similar in approaches, maybe some things that are a little bit different that we can talk about today. But I think it's critical, you know, having community. In fact, with Fully Restored Ministries, some of our guiding principles are relationship, community, and purpose. But then we have an added statement after that. Relationship, community, and purpose in the context of faith, righteousness, and commitment. And the reason we have that is because even in our addiction, we had relationship, community, and purpose.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It was bad. It was not healthy relationships. It was a very negative community, and my purpose was very selfish and self-centered in what I was doing. So sure. You can have relationship, community, and purpose in a lot of bad ways. I think it's critical to have it also in good ways, especially within recovery. It seems like it's also one of the strong points of the STEP programs and STEP is that community. Sure. You know, I have many friends that are heavily involved with that, and they just can't say enough about having a community of people that they're regularly engaged with, and there's accountability and all those things that happen within that. So it's a very healthy thing to have that community. So I know you have a background as well, even prior, you know, finding your way to the River's Edge Ranch. So I was hoping you could just share with our listeners a little bit of your background, and then we can get into the community aspect and your work at River's Edge Ranch.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
I'd love to share. So probably the background in the drug use started in 8th grade, continued out through junior high school, progressively got worse, into the heavier stuff through high school.
Seems to be very typical, at least with guys, with young boys, you know,
well,
8th grade.
Yeah. And I was having a conversation yesterday talking about marijuana not being a gateway drug. Is absolutely not true.
Oh yeah,
at least in my case. In most cases, that's what leads you into the next steps.
Well, we have a thought on that. Not every person who smokes pot goes on to doing other drugs, but every person that did other drugs started with marijuana.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's definitely a path through that.
Yeah. So that was my path. And high school got real bad. Just doing different drugs and drinking. It was early 20s, 1990, my older brother overdosed from heroin, died when I was 20.
And died?
Yeah, died. And so at that point, I remember just getting on my knees and saying, okay, God, I'm done. Barely had a relationship with God at the time. I'd been going to church for a few months, was not raised in a church. And so I'd been going seeking something because I knew I had a problem. And then when he died, that was that, and I just got on my knees.
Did he die at home?
No, it was in a hotel room in San Bernardino.
Okay, and you were in 9th grade at the time.
No, I had graduated at that point.
Okay,
my early 20s,
yeah,
okay. My early 20s, yeah. So that was the beginning of the end, and I had no idea at that point what God had in store for me. Went through the next years just learning about Jesus and my walk with God, staying sober. And then just started a family and moved on. Okay,
so you kind of did it within a church community, or?
Yeah, it was more a church community, Bible studies. What you mentioned earlier, the accountability, being around good community as opposed to bad community. Yeah. So my wife and I, we got married, and at that time we'd spend a lot of nights at the church just in Bible studies and praise and worship time, and just being involved there, building a family in that community instead of where we came from.
So that was 20, right?
Yeah,
around 20 years
25,
old.
Yeah.
How long have you been at River's Edge Ranch?
Last 10 years, approximately 10 years, yeah. I've been involved in the River's Edge Ranch.
All right, so there was only about 5 or 6 years in between those two?
Yeah,
then, right?
No, there was quite a few, 30 years or something in between there. And, Would you like me to get into involvement in the ranch or how that happened? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely want to focus on that. You know, I just wanted the listeners to understand, you know, you had a background in this as well.
Sure.
And I think most people that are involved in recovery type programs have some kind of a background themselves. Yeah. I mean, I think very few situations, maybe some clinical situations where they don't, but most of like the residential type stuff, it's people that have been through it and understand. So
I found that to be true where just about everyone, and the people involved that didn't have the background knew someone, a son, a daughter, a mom, a dad, something. So, I mean, everyone is tied to it one way or another, if not personally.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, just kind of, it's our opinion that every person, no matter who they are, has someone, if not in their immediate family, their extended family that has dealt with addiction or is dealing with addiction.
Sure.
Which is why we say it's a whole of society problem,
It
because
is.
everybody has someone they know that is dealing with it or has dealt with it.
Yeah.
Has that been your experience?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We have our galas for the Rivers Edge Ranch, our fundraisers, and there's about 700 people there. And every year I said, okay, if you have been involved in it, stand up. And if you know someone who's been involved in it, a son, a daughter, stand up. And how about a mom and dad? Someone, by the time I get through the whole family, everyone in the room standing. Because we all, exactly. I mean, it's every time.
That's good.
Not even.
That's great. Didn't you just have one, right?
We just had one March 28th. Yeah.
How'd that go?
It was good. It was good. It was a fun night. We had Ron Brown from Teen Challenge came out, and he spoke for a bit. Sheriff Shannon Dykes from the San Bernardino County Sheriff Department.
Okay.
He came and talked about programs like the Rivers Edge Ranch, like Teen Challenge, Fully Restored, just how we're all needed. We're all needed. It's not one program is going to solve this problem. It's all together. So he spoke for a bit. We had Mickey Inbody, the superintendent of Fontana Unified School District, just talking about the partnership within. How do we get a hold of these kids at a younger age before they go through the prison systems, and just how Fontana Unified is helping with the adult school and general education, high school diploma, stuff like that. So,
well, it's great that you have those people involved because, I mean, it seems like without a fail, at least within the men that we talk to, yourself included, me, you know, a lot of guests that we've had, it seems junior high, right around 7th, 8th grade, is the time when a lot of these things start to take off.
Sure.
And I'm sure a part of it is physiological effects with puberty and things that a person's going through. I know myself personally, it was right around that time that I went from being like really super confident to just feeling awkward socially, and you know, doing these types of things can kind of mask that and make you feel more comfortable. But I think any type of programs that are looking at getting at people in that age group, junior high, coming out of, you know, elementary school, is critical if you want to deal with this.
It is.
Well, cool. That's awesome that you have all that participation. Now, Lucerne Valley, that's San Bernardino County, right?
Yes, that's San Bernardino County.
Okay, so it sounds like you have a lot of people from San Bernardino County, Fontana, just coming alongside to...
Sure. The Inland Empire, the supervisors, Don Rowe and Supervisor Armaderas come up to support it, the ranch, the city of Fontana.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been at Rivers Edge Ranch for how long did you say?
Going on 10 years.
Okay, so how did that happen? How did you find your way to Rivers Edge Ranch?
Accidentally.
Okay.
My last encounters with drug use was almost 30 years ago. Wasn't looking for it. I was asking God, I was at a point in my life where, I was ready to retire, asking God, what do you want me to do? And he answered. Wasn't what I wanted to hear, but a friend invited.
It's often the case.
Yeah, a friend invited me up to the Rivers Edge Ranch. I finally said, he was bugging me. I said, fine, I'll go if you just leave me alone. So I took a day during the week. We went up there, stopped and got hamburgers for the guys. It was truly a God moment. It was a calling that day. Spent the day there just talking to them. The guys were so grateful we're there. We took them hamburgers, which at the time all the ranch ever had for lunch was cup of noodles. So a hamburger was a treat. The guys were so glad to have someone come up there. And So we spent a few hours there just visiting, and on the way home, going out Highway 18 in Lucerne Valley, I was just sitting in the truck with my friend and just heard God say, "This is where I want you." And I mean, I wasn't asking him, especially in that setting. We're in the middle of the desert. And I mean, I looked around like, where, God, and
maybe a program in Hawaii or something
yeah,
like
exactly.
that.
Yeah, down in Mexico. And so, I kind of ignored it the first time. A lot of us are stubborn and need to hear it a few times. And
I raised my hand on that.
Yeah, it was a minute later, God said, "This is where I want you." And he used my name that time. He's like, "Doug, this is where I want you."
Made it very personal.
Yeah. And then same thing as I'm looking around and it's out in the middle of nowhere. My wife and I had talked about retiring and moving down to Mexico, literally. And I'm thinking, okay, this isn't in our plans. And so I kind of ignored it the second time. And the third time, he just said, "This is where I want you." And I was like, okay, now he's serious. I should listen. And so
how many people were there at that time? I mean, like, just real quick, what did the program look like? And I guess the reason I'm asking is kind of just set it up. I know in your time there, you've been instrumental in really taking the program to another level and within community and stuff. So just kind of
when I got involved, the past founder Gary Hornsby had some health issues and was not around as much as he needed to be just because of that. And there was probably 12 to 15 guys there when we went up there. They had no working cars. They had one borrowed truck that they used, and they had one van that kind of ran sometimes. No air conditioning, no heat. The seats were like metal bars. All the padding was gone. And so that was kind of the state of it at that point. When we started getting a little more involved, we found out there was a couple $100,000 of debt. Just every time we thought we were getting our head above water, someone else would say, "Hey, there's some money here and you're owed." So that's kind of was the state of it. It was, I mean, the program was good. The structure was good. It was faith-based. Jesus was the center of it. But it was kind of had some loose ends to take care of.
And where is it now?
It's definitely led by Jesus, because I'm not smart enough to do what's going on up there on my own. We're good. It's a nonprofit in the middle of the desert working with men recovering from drug and alcohol abuse. So there's always egos, personalities, whatever it is. Guys are coming off the street, out of jail. You have conflicts all the time. We, in the last year, went through some transitions up there with some leadership and new staff. McMillan Family Foundation has helped us with some staffing. And so we're right at the point of hiring a spiritual director, which will be the first time that we've had a full-time spiritual director, someone who can just oversee the men when they come in, as they're up there walking and going through the struggles. So we're in a good spot. We have a very strong staff. In fact, all of them have went through the program, which is kind of important for any program, is to raise them up within. That way they
Seems
know
like
what's
resources are always, especially for faith-based programs, resources are always a struggle. And unfortunately, at least up until this point, it seems like, community resources, whether it's city, county, state, federal, are very resistant to faith-based programs. That's been my experience. Maybe that will change with this administration. I hope it will. I don't know what your experience has been, but it seems like a lot of times there's strings attached, to those things, that may or may not line up with your faith.
We personally, we have not had that big of an issue with the faith-based side of it, which I think part of it is they know going in where we stand. They see what God does in these men's lives, and that's very important, is understanding it's not the ranch, it's not Fully Restored, it's not Teen Challenge, it's God that changes these men from the inside out. He starts in their heart. Our pastor Dan Carroll told me years ago, "Hey, this is a great program, but if these men aren't healed, they're going to be back here." It's just, you can have nice buildings and we have animals and really clean dirt, but that's all it is. It's not nothing we do that truly transforms these men. It's all the power of God.
Absolutely. So River's Edge Ranch, Fully Restored Ministries, ours, Teen Challenge, Salvation Army, a lot of these different programs are community-based. I mean, that's the thought behind it. Whether it's called residential treatment or however they want to word it, it is basically community. And so since that's kind of the topic today, what's your experience with that, the value in that, and maybe some things where you introduced more positive community in your time there?
Community is very important, whatever, because these programs affect the community. There are people walking the streets that need the help in every city. And so having the community behind not just other programs, but like, for instance, the city of Fontana, the mayor came and spoke at our gala as well. She invited me to be on a homeless coalition for the city of Fontana to talk about how do we make an impact on the homeless people in the city of Fontana. And it's the same.
I'm glad she invited you, because we actually did a interview with Micah Tucker, and who's heavily involved in that. And he confirmed, what we already knew to be true from our own personal experience, that if you want to deal with homelessness, especially long-term homelessness, you have to deal with addiction. You're not gonna solve the problem with housing, right? You have to deal with addiction.
It's funny you say that, because we meet monthly, and two meetings ago, I stood up. I'm like, okay, guys. I mean, because the police department's in there, other churches, community. It's a very widespread coalition there of people, and I stood up and I said, guys, when are we going to address the elephant in this room? Because they were kind of avoiding the addiction part of it. Just, hey, we have housing, we have the Path Housing, we have CityLink, who provides 3 different sources, and it's all great stuff. But if you go in there an addict using drugs and alcohol, and you go through that year still doing that, when you leave there, where are you at? And so
absolutely.
That's what triggered actually the city of Fontana and Simba Center came up to the ranch 2 days ago. After I said that, I'm like, guys, we have to deal with the addiction side of this.
Wonderful.
And there's a percentage of people that are homeless that just a spouse lost a job and the cost of living is so expensive in California.
Absolutely.
There's a percentage that's has some mental health issues, but the big percentage is just the drug and alcohol use that got them to that point of being homeless.
I think the number Micah gave us when we did the interview was, he put it in 2 categories, which I think seems accurate. Short-term homelessness, which would be the group that you're talking about, someone, loses a job, a divorce, something like that. Short-term in the sense that, less than 6 months, they get some help. Those type of people are going to go into a shelter. They're going to, rely on the resources that the city provides. Long-term homelessness, over 6 months, he said better than, I think it was better than 60-70% of that community. It's probably even more than that, is addiction or mental illness, which often is caused by addiction. So you're not going to deal with the problem without dealing with that.
Absolutely.
And that's, that really is a lot of the heart behind this podcast, is recognizing that addiction is a whole of society problem. Whether it's homelessness, whether it's crime, whether it's unwanted pregnancies. I mean, all of these things, you are not going to fully address those issues without including addiction.
Sure.
Because it's a big part of them. So it's without talking about it, you're not going to address the problem. So community, so within a community, but also the value of a community setting for recovery, right? I mean, for us with Fully Restored, I envision at some point, tell me what you think, where some people come into the program, a man comes into the program, or a young man or whatever, and he's, let's say, only been sober a few weeks, something like that. Partnering that person with someone that's been in the program maybe in third phase of the program. They've been there 9 months, 10 months. They're almost ready
Sure.
to graduate. You partner them together because now you have this relationship where maybe they pray together. The person that's been there a while is able to kind of give the young guy the ropes and tell him how it works. But he's an encouragement to that person just starting out. Wow, that could be me.
Yeah.
In 9-10 months, I could be actually at the end of this program and sober and restored relationships. Well, it's also beneficial for the guy that's been there 9 or 10 months because now he gets to look back and say, that's where I was 9 or 10 months ago. So there's like value in having that community.
Absolutely, yeah. And we see that a lot. It's not intentional at the ranch, but it's good that you brought it up and maybe make it more intentional. But we see that where the guys come in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they come in with egos and attitudes and marking their territory. And the guys have been there 9 months, see them, and that's where they were. And so they understand them. And so they walk alongside them. And the guys that have been through the program can explain it as well, as where you walk alongside this guy when he's struggling because they were there. Me telling them what to do is one thing. They may or may not hear it. But having a guy in the program was in that shoe, wanted to leave, wanted to fight someone, didn't want to follow the program, that's where they were. So putting them together in the program is good. We continue that even after the graduation with a mentor. We try to find a person in the community and the church who, as they get into the 9 and 10 months, will start walking with the guys so when they get ready to transition off the ranch, they have someone in the community that can.
And your program's 1 year, right?
Yes.
Roughly a year?
Yeah, roughly a year, yeah.
Yeah, same with us. Fully Restored, the vision is minimum of 1 year.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll take a little bit longer or whatever, but you just can't. Someone that's been using drugs, even 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, some people a long time, that doesn't go away in 30 days or 60 days.
Even a year. I was reading a book talking about with methamphetamine use, it takes more than a year for your brain to quit thinking like a meth addict. And that's what I was. And I can relate to that because for me, it was like, okay, what am I going to steal or rob to get high again next time? And I mean, it's been 35, 40 years and I still drive down the street thinking, dude, I could steal that right out of the yard.
Wow.
So thank you for inviting me. And if you're robbed tomorrow, it's not
okay,
me.
Perfect.
Yeah. So no, but you're right. It's not. Amen on the 30-day programs, the 90-day programs. They're trying, but that's not enough time to change anything. You get sober, you might get your feet back on the ground, but you have not changed a habit. None of the hurt, the hang-ups, nothing. You haven't addressed that, and that's where a year, like you said, at least we have a 1 year. It's 1 year program on minimum on the ranch. Some men will stay 2, some stay 3. The longer that you stay, the more success we see. And then we actually have 3 transition homes in the Inland Empire where they will leave there and if they choose to go to this home, that's where we give them a car and get them a job and help them learn to pay rent and save money, go through some financial peace classes.
Yeah, I love it. I think that is missing in a lot of, especially faith-based programs, just the practical stuff, which was really the vision for us behind Fully Restored, is bringing spiritual healing and practical preparation together. I love the fact that you guys help these men with a car, and not just no strings attached, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. You give them the car, but you hold the title, for a period of time, maybe 6 months, a year, whatever it is. And if they show themselves to be faithful and working and doing that, then you give them the title and the car is theirs. So there's still some accountability there, but you're giving them such a leg up. I mean, those are the kinds of things that I think are so important to helping someone have success. I mean, just think the difference it makes having a car to get to work or to even go look for a job.
Sure.
As opposed to having to get on a bus and try and make your way around town and figure things out. It's like huge.
And we've seen that early on in the program when a guy would graduate, you'd pray for him, pat him on the back and say, good luck. And that's when we developed the Phase 3 program where what we're actually doing now with the County of San Bernardino is we'll get their child support taken care of. We'll get their court cases taken care of. We get DMV issues. Because if they come off the ranch and they're in a car and they don't have a license or insurance or warrants, it's starting right back over. So that's why, that's a lot of the reason it's, we call wraparound, where we set them up to succeed, where they get done. Like you said, how long can you ride a bus to work before it's raining and you don't go? Or whatever the case is, and then now you're out of
just
job.
Getting frustrated and discouraged. I mean, hope has a lot to do with it. And by giving these men a car and an opportunity, I mean, it just helps with the hope. We're a firm believer in the practical preparation part being included. I mean, just think about how many guys come into a program, have never balanced a checkbook, have never had a bank account, have never maybe filled out an application or a resume. I mean, all of these little things that, could also be, poured into these men's lives, and it's critical to their success.
Absolutely.
Not just being sober, right? But having some life skills to be successful.
No, and you're right on the job application part of it. A lot of these guys start working at 16, 17, 18, and they got a job with a buddy and a dad or whatever, and never went through a formal application process of, don't swear in your interview. And
right.
Smile.
Wear some nice clothes.
Exactly, yeah. Just
don't go in flip-flops.
Yeah, some of the practical stuff is like they just never had it. And so there's so much just wrap around part of the program that you just walk through them. And even once they get a job and they start saving money and budgeting and just looking at a future, I mean, when they go in the ranch, they're not looking, or a program, they're not looking like, hey, in 10 years, I want to be doing this. But it takes steps to it. Obviously sobriety, their walk with Christ is the most important things. And then you transition into a job and living and doing your own laundry. And then you start looking at careers, which I know Fully Restored is working towards that, which will teach them a trade where they can go out and make money and they can go on a vacation someday.
And what we've found, especially with that third aspect, maybe it's not possible for everybody, but it really motivates, guys, especially men. We eventually want to do one of these interviews and just talk to someone about the dignity of work. We were created to do work and to be involved in things. And so, when a man is not working, something is missing. Sure. But when you give a man the ability to be employed and make a living, I mean, it's super motivational.
Yeah. And that's at the ranch, we're a working ranch. We have 20 horses and 50 cows and pigs, and work is a very big aspect of it in our year-long program. Right. You see some of the shorter-term programs where it's a sober living house where they don't do a lot in the day.
Absolutely. One of the ministries that I used to be familiar with, faith-based program, used to have guys, that would graduate in like a week or 2 weeks after that, and they would tell me, I graduate in a week, I graduate in 2 weeks, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know where I'm going to go. I know I don't want to go back to that life, but I don't know what to do. And it would just break my heart that there was no preparation ahead of time with, these skills and training that we're talking about, investing in practical stuff into men's lives to help them be successful. And so it's a huge part of Fully Restored Ministries, bringing the spiritual healing and practical preparation. It sounds like that is also, the experience there for the men at River's Edge Ranch. So I'm super glad to hear that. But one other thing that just kind of struck me with River's Edge Ranch and you personally and our connection is just the willingness to cooperate. And I'd like to really touch on that. We're talking about not only community that addicts may live in, or the community that a program is in, right? Or the community of people within that program, but there's also a community of programs, right? Different residential programs and different programs. And it's been my experience that people get very territorial with this stuff, and it blows my mind. I'm like, we're all trying to accomplish the same thing here. There's plenty of addicts to go around, right?
Yeah.
There's no shortage of people that need help. It'd be nice to have more cooperation among people, and I have totally experienced that with you and Rivers Edge Ranch, and I'm grateful for it. So if you want to just talk about that, it'd be great.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's not a one size fits all. There are so many different backgrounds, and it just the Rivers Edge Ranch one cannot serve everyone. We do not have the room capacity, and everyone is not a fit for our program. You have a kid that might get high a little bit in high school. It's get high at prom. It's not okay. You're being shipped away for a year to the ranch. We have a lot of guys that have been doing it for a lifetime. Our motto is a place for second chances. It's really a place almost for last chances for the Rivers Edge Ranch. There are other programs that address different aspects and ages and involvement in drug use. And so that's why I think it's important. One is if we received all the funding in the whole state, we still couldn't handle the problem. That's why it's so hard, so important, and so hard for us. We have to work together. There's no two ways about it. It's not a territory. It's hey, we're full. Can you take this guy? Or you're full. Can we take your guy? And there are a lot of good organizations that are actually putting together right now portals that talk about how many beds are open and what your demographics and different things like that. So
even ideas, it seems like. I mean, just in the time that I've known you and we've talked, there's many things that you guys are doing that I'm like, that's a great idea. And I mean, I don't claim to have all the answers to anything. So like even within this community of ideas, that are things that work, things that don't work. And I was like, why would you not want to do that?
Well, but the same thing is what works for us up in the high desert may not work for you here, and vice versa. So you're right. Your ideas, you bounce them off different programs. Again, McMillan Family Foundation does a great job with that, bringing together a couple hundred organizations that work together, and we spend a week together. And
now McMillan Foundation, they I did a little bit of research. The owner, I think, owned Todd Pipe.
Yes.
And maybe had a child that overdosed.
Had two sons who overdosed and a wife. Yeah.
And a wife?
His first wife, yeah. Overdosed.
And died?
Yes.
Both of his sons and his wife overdosed and died at separate times.
Separate times, yeah.
Wow, I did not know
Which is really, when they first started getting involved in the ranch, they supported us in a lot of different areas. And I kept going to them saying, hey, why do you do this? This is just incredible, what you're doing. And Carl McMillan, the founder, wrote a book. And at the time, Wayne Sagatti, the guy, said, read the book. And I said, okay. And I didn't read it. And I went back to him. I said, why do you do this? He said, you didn't read the book, huh? I said, no. I said, why do you do it? He said, read the book. So finally I read the book, and Carl explained it in the book of why he's so generous, why they support so many organizations. And it's great to see people who have the resources give back.
Yeah, and it seems to be it's because of their own personal experience or tragedy. Sure. I think Lindsay Snyder with In-N-Out also, based on her own life and experiences, is a big supporter of recovery programs as well.
Yeah, they have the Slave to Nothing Foundation that supports drug
and that's what we need. I mean, it's a whole of society problem, so it's going to be a whole of society solution.
Yeah.
People have to get on board and realize that, they're not alone in these things. So what are some of the, as far as with Rivers Edge Ranch and within that community, I know you have the animals, the animal husbandry, which I think is great if you have the space to be able to do something like that. I've always thought animals are very therapeutic to people. So what are some of the things that you see are like the most successful there at the ranch in this process?
Well, the animals, you're right. It's proven, there's studies that the animal therapy side of things, there's actually funding for it.
Oh, okay.
Because it is so critical. These men coming up with no responsibilities, no no structure. Now they have an animal that they have to take care of, or it doesn't live.
Oh, yeah.
And we'd rather have them learn how to take care of an animal before they learn how to take care of their kid. So they know they have to feed the kid.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of it is structure. Most addicts, myself included, were very selfish. All we cared about was ourselves.
I think all addicts are.
Yeah. You got up when you wanted, went where you wanted, went to bed when you wanted. Having a structure in the program where these men the cooks get up at 2:30 to start breakfast, and at 3:30 they're in the dining hall, and 4 o'clock's breakfast, and they're out working with animals at 4 in the morning together. That's very important, is just building that structure in their lives that they've never had. We do a lot of serving. We'll go down to CityLink and Touch Ministry, some other ministries. We come down the hill and up the hill where we serve the homeless communities. And having an addict do that takes the focus off themselves of what's in it for me to now they're helping people.
I think it's critical.
And,
I think that is one of the most critical things, is having that, because you said addiction is very selfish and self-centered.
Sure.
When you get your eyes off yourself and start helping other people, it's like, it's healthy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So that's a big part of it. And actually that transfers into their life and time off the ranch when there's a lot of people through our home church, Water Life, that know the ranch, know the men, and there's a lot of business that just hire them because these guys are good workers. They have the structure. They're at work 10 minutes early, ready to work. And
you guys, as the ranch, help instill those values.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, we do. Just
be there early.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Don't be there late.
Yeah. Breakfast is 10 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
Or Ron gets on you and makes you have extra duty or something. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So no, that is just those kind of values. When we have guests, you clean up and you're not sleeping and you're awake and ready to go, and just communicating with people in a civil manner that, again, a lot of times when you're on the streets is not always civil. So
now, is there some type of an intake process into the ranch? Or I know for Fully Restored, we would have people, an application, get some information and things like that. You guys have something similar?
Yes, it's online now. We started out in paper 10 years ago. Now it's online. Where do you go? You go to our website, theriversedgeranch.org. There's my plug.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go. You go to our website, you apply. It's 10 simple questions. It's mainly just contact. How do we get a hold of you? At this point, we're not funded by the state in any way, so that loosens our hands a bit. And so if you go online and apply, usually someone from the ranch will call you within an hour, a person who's went through the program, and have a conversation with you, make sure you meet the criteria, and then pretty much you can come up there. We actually, a fun story yesterday, we were at CityLink serving the homeless, and some of the ranch guys started talking to one of the homeless guys, and they started telling about the ranch. He's like, hey, I want to do this. And so right there on site, when he went to CityLink for food and showers, and on site we did an intake. The guys interviewed him right there and took him up the hill.
Wow.
All within an hour. And
wow.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah, that's part of the intake processes. And you know as well as your time's limited. When a guy says, hey, I want some help, you got a small window. Sometimes an hour, sometimes 10 hours, 20 hours, something, but it's not 3 days or 4 days. By 3 or 4 days, they've found their way to do what they were doing before.
Yeah.
So time's critical.
Absolutely. Do you have any advice? So listeners to the podcast, there may be people that are struggling and looking for options, but there is invariably going to be family members, that have a child, a spouse, a brother or sister dealing with addiction and looking for solutions. What advice would you have for them? Because maybe the addict wants help, maybe they don't, so it's a tricky situation.
Very tricky. Yes. And it's a hard situation. Mm-hmm. It's a hard situation for the addict who's saying, I might want help, might not. Mm-hmm. I say, do it now.
Yeah.
Don't wait 10 more years. Don't, for one, with the crisis in fentanyl, you may not have 10 years, but why spend 10 more years of your life doing what you're doing when you know it's leading to nothing? Mm-hmm. Do it now. Get up to the ranch. Yeah, a year is a long time and a commitment, but 10 years is longer. And you're right where you were. For the family members, this is the hard part. And I've dealt with this for years because in the beginning I did a lot of intakes. And gosh, you got to cut them off. You know, that's the hardest part. Is it was typically grandmothers who would call me and say, hey, my grandson needs help. He's been addicted. My daughter threw him out, rightfully so, you know, when they're in that stage. And I ask questions. I'll be like, okay, so tell me what happens there. And they're like, oh, well, he sleeps till about 10 o'clock. And then he gets up and I make him breakfast. He loves eggs, you know, and the grandmas are treating them like the 4-year-old grandson when he's 40. And, you know, I'll tell the grandparents, hey, you need to give him a week to straighten up or get out of the house. And it's so hard because there's death on the streets. Mm-hmm. You know, there's that chance that he dies, but he's dying in your home. Yeah. And so it's usually when a parent or a grandparent cuts the strings, gives them a fair and reasonable amount of time to get it together, helps them, and they don't want the help, then they have to say, we're done till you're ready.
Yeah, you don't actually help a person when you continue to enable them.
No, you don't. But man, it's so hard. It's so hard to tell a parent or a loved one, hey, you have to kick them out.
Yeah.
So
tough love.
Yeah, it is.
Well, we appreciate you coming and talking with us, Doug. Not sure if you had anything else you wanted to share, but maybe you could just kind of give another plug for River's Edge Ranch. We want to definitely let people know that might be in Riverside County, San Bernardino County, anywhere around here, that you guys are definitely an option for them. So if you want to just kind of...
Well, thank you, Chad, for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a fun time. Could go on forever. But no, the ranch, and I know your listeners are Riverside, San Bernardino County. Mm-hmm. We're not affiliated directly with any church or organization. We have people from Tennessee, from Detroit, across the country. So if you have a loved one in another state, we've had people put their loved ones on a plane and we pick them up.
Sometimes it's probably better to do that.
Yeah.
Get them out of their area to somewhere where they don't have all those contacts.
Exactly. Can't run. So we are not state funded right now. We have very, very generous donors. So if you cannot afford to go into recovery, we have sponsors that will cover your...
What is the cost, by the way?
It costs about $1,900 a month per man to raise them. That's all the food, medical, transportation, everything. Sure. We charge, or we ask for a $600 donation a month. Some can pay and some can't. We do not turn away anybody. God has always provided for the ranch, and there's no reason to think he's not going to now. So that's that. But you go online to the riversedgeranch.org, apply, and like I say, you'll get a phone call. And even if your son's not with you or incarcerated or whatever, we'll talk to the parents, the wives, whoever it is, and set up a time to talk to him and do the intake process where...
Men only?
Men only, yes.
Okay. Yeah. And you said the riversedgeranch.org, right?
The Rivers
Because I think I tried to look it up one time, and I just put riversedgeranch.org, and it doesn't come up, or it comes up as something else. So the riversedgeranch.org.
Correct, yes.
Okay, just want to clarify that.
Couldn't find a shorter name. It had to be the longest we could, So anyways, just go online, apply.
Okay.
Share with, like you say, with anyone. We all know someone.
Yeah.
We all know someone.
Absolutely. Well, Doug, thank you for not only coming and doing the podcast, but your partnership collaboration with us at Fully Restored Ministries. We appreciate it, and I'm sure yourself, myself, everyone that's involved in this type of ministry would love to just put themselves out of business by not having any more addicts.
Yeah.
Probably not going to happen anytime soon, but
Yeah. Not in this fallen world we live in, no.
Yeah.
It won't.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Chad, for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being a part of this much-needed conversation as we expose the raw truths about addiction. Don't forget to like, follow, and most importantly, share. Remember, addiction is the dirty little secret that every family deals with, but nobody wants to talk about.